Spring break is late this year, seems like. I love my family and cats. I love mine too. Still just learning day by day. Good, you guys. Life is chaos, holding on strong. Nice, Parker. Fall behind, keep going, found me. I like that, Brazita. Studying hard, making memories, always growing. Very nice. Not much to look at here. Bianca, what are you talking about?
I'm just feeling a little bit down today.
Are you? Okay, so yeah, not feeling good. There's a lot of sickness going around, and you guys will catch it in the classroom your first semester. So trust me when I say you should all be on emergency. Day by day in every way. Troy, good. Finding a way, wrong ways only. So this is an activity that you can do with your students that you can learn a lot from. Have them write it on a sheet and maybe some of them share out. It's kind of fun. Teaching science, learning always moving forward. Good. So much work, not enough coffee. That sounds like me, Abby. Uh, Samuel. Samuel, are you the one with the new baby?
No, I have a
Oh,
2-year and a 4-year-old.
a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. Like a 2-year-old starts looking like a boy, huh? From a baby.
That's when they start to, yeah, that's when they start to seem like a real child,
Yes. I
like
have
Bianca says.
my one of my grandsons is just turned 2 and I FaceTime him. They live in Washington and wow, they grow up so fast. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, you're a little boy now and I just saw you were a baby."
Yeah, with a whole bunch of ideas in their heads.
Yeah. Learning to embrace my growing self. Love it. Gratitude for my family and friends. Life, happiness, all in one. You guys are very positive. I like it. It's random, strange, wild acts of kindness. Cool. Fueled by love, powered by coffee. Very cool. Extremely exhausted, but still moving forward. Hardly sleeping, but new. Oh, so Serenio, you're the one with the new baby?
Yeah, I am.
How old? Because it was last week
She
or,
is, yeah, she was born here on Sunday. Finally
oh,
born Sunday. She's 4 days old. Yeah, 4 days old.
was was your wife in the hospital from Thursday through Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
That's a lot.
Thursday night, yeah.
Wow. Well, everything's good and everything's going well.
Yeah. It was she spent a few days in there just because the nurses did want to monitor. She's been high risk
Uh-huh.
for the most part throughout the pregnancy, but then when we had the delivery date on the 14th, she was already feeling contractions, but they weren't really back to back until uh, Saturday morning or
Uh-huh.
Sunday morning. Yeah,
Wow. Is this your first baby?
she's my second.
Your second. Wow. How
Mhm.
fun. My
Yeah, it's fun.
goodness. It is a busy time. I appreciate you being here.
Mhm.
Never regretted anything but nothing ever. These are great, you guys. Well, so just looking at yours, it's interesting. You feel like you know people in your class better and things like that, and kind of you get a feeling for your students. So I encourage you to try this with your kid. Plus, the kids they have to think about kind of what's going on in their lives and what's important. And sometimes I don't know that all of our kids do that. So anyway, a 6-word memoir. All right, so here's our norms for the classroom today. Be present, honor your classmates by listening and contributing, have your camera on, be the student you want your students to be. I think someone said their internet. Oh, it's um in I don't see if he's still here. Anyway, if you really struggle with your internet, some people struggle with their internet being really hard. Oh, it was Ivan who's in India. So he can have his camera off because he's in India. Um, be the student you want your students to be, have fun learning, and think about how you can use what you're learning in your classroom. So speaking of which, I just wanted to hear, you guys did we did inquiry-based learning as a class when we didn't meet, and then we also met the week before and did thinking strategies. So I'm curious if anyone has tried any new thinking strategies or anything in their class. Has anybody tried anything? Or I really enjoyed reading about the strategies you chose because there were some really good ones that I hadn't seen. So anybody try anything yet? I see, think, wonder. Okay. Serenio, am I saying your name right?
Yes, you are.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, one of the ones that I used last week was the hexagonal thinking.
Oh,
Right.
yes. Yay.
Yeah, it was really interesting to see my students link and pair up concepts or vocabulary to and my boundaries were within a to link those vocabulary words or a concept to some sort of real life scenario. And so they would use examples. And then so they would sketch out the um, actually what they would do first with the acrylic hexagonal pieces was have it on a whiteboard so they could draft up their web, I guess you could say. And then
Uh-huh.
from there, they sketched into their notebook, and then I paired it up that activity with a reflection. So I asked them, why did you link this tile with this tile? What was the connection there? What was the meaning behind it? And it was really good. It was my first time that I used it, and we used the hexagonal thing. We had the hexagonal tiles since November through Scout Island in Fresno. So yesterday, or not yesterday, the last time I was here, I got inspired by doing that activity, and it worked out really well. Mhm.
So you have like acrylic hexagons
Yes.
and you can write on them or give them words to put on them.
Yeah.
That's cool. I'll have to look that up. So that takes a lot of the work out of doing hexagonal thinking if you like have the kids write the words on the acrylic hexagons.
Mhm.
So very cool. I like that.
That was
Awesome.
good.
All right. Kobe, thank you for sharing.
So today, my learning objective was students will be able to ask and develop a deeper understanding of fitness's impact on their life through the lens of a weight room. And I basically designed the whole lesson around giving them the chance to actually ask questions about, like, oh, so when I'm doing this, should I be trying it this way? And I gave them basically almost free will to experiment and figure out whatever way they were more effective with specific weights.
Okay. That's awesome. So really thinking about like and exploring with questioning. I love that. That's great. Okay. Who else? Anybody else use any thinking strategies in their classroom yet? Okay. I want to encourage you guys that that website that you did the work out of has some really great ideas, and I heard a lot of them. Oh, Tyler.
I haven't used it yet, but I
Uh-huh.
have my next 2 weeks of units all set up. And the big like ending activity we're doing is our processing activity is my take on the
Hexagonal thinking.
hexagonal thinking, yeah. And I'm doing a
What's
slight
the
twist.
difference on what's the difference on your take?
I'm giving them a set of 9 words. Like I'm not. It's not going to be a giant activity, but I'm giving them 9 words related to the unit, and then they're going to be doing it, kind of going through, doing all the connections, very similar. But I'm also requiring them to come up with additional terms related
okay.
to the chapter. I want them to also be adding their own ones into it.
Oh, great. That's perfect. And then and is it like will they have a test after that?
Yeah, so this is going to be on the block day before their test. And so the next day they will have the next day they'll work on the study guide. And then the following week is they have one more day to study and then the test.
That sounds great. Love it. Parker.
I actually did a discovery-based lesson today where I basically opened it up for the kids to search up a car of their choice. And then we basically did mock calculations of what their total cost with different loan terms and interest would be, and then also their monthly payments.
Oh my gosh, that sounds so good. What was it like pretty shocking for them?
Unfortunately, my honor students are very not used to this type of learning, so they were just like kind of burning and turning through the math and not really taking the time to look at what the math was telling them. So that
Oh,
was a
okay.
big struggle.
So you're saying that they were getting the math, but they weren't kind of applying it to, oh, your payment would be this much and thinking about what that actually means for them?
They
Oh,
were
you're on.
they just did the math and then didn't really care to like look at what it was actually meaning in context.
Oh, okay. So that's another piece, like maybe having them do a quick write, like what is just so that they can make that connection.
I did an exit ticket trying to like get that to happen when I saw it happening, and
Uh-huh.
it didn't land particularly well, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, don't stop trying because that's a great activity. I mean, especially something that could be meaningful to them someday when they have to buy a car. So excellent. All right. Okay, you guys. So all of that stuff, inquiry-based teaching, I think is the way education is definitely going, that we're not, it's not sit and get, it's for them to start thinking through things and coming up with their own solutions and because that way when we're not there as a teacher, they're still knowing how to get information. So, and that's not to say that we can't do the sit and get teaching, but we have to think about, kind of doing both a little bit. How can we let them explore and think about it? And there will be some pushback when you start doing that because if they're not used to it, exactly what Parker said, they're not used to having to think that way. And so sometimes it's a little bit different, but don't give up because when they start doing it and they learn to like it quite a bit. So anyway, all right. Okay, so so tonight we're going to be distinguishing between collaborative learning, group work and collaborative learning, and we're going to examine the role of the teacher in that. And here's your essential question, and you can click on that link for your notes page and just copy this essential question in there. How does collaborative learning along with proficient speaking and active listening foster a deeper understanding of disciplinary content and facilitate critical engagement across diverse academic fields? That's a mouthful. I must have been in a good mood when I wrote that. So go ahead and get those class notes. All right. And now you can do this on your class notes. You don't have to, but you can. In your class notes, if you didn't read the Lent chapter about collaborative learning, then don't worry about that one because that was kind of a messed up assignment because I gave you the wrong assignment. So, but if you did, go ahead and one. Rosita.
Oh, were you gonna? I don't think you're sharing your screen. I'm not
Oh,
too.
I'm not. Oh,
No.
thank you for telling me. I thought I was. Screen one. Share. Am I sharing it now? Can you guys see it? Yeah. Okay, good. All right. So, so what was important to you in the Lent chapter about collaborative learning? What are the thoughts about collaborative cooperative learning in your classroom? So I want to hear about it. If you haven't read the chapter, that's totally fine. Do you use it? Why or why not? What are your fears or concerns about using cooperative learning, collaborative learning in your classroom? If any, what cooperative, collaborative learning strategies do you use in your classroom, and be prepared to share what you have written. So I'm going to give you 3 minutes. There's a timer up here. I'm going to start it. Go ahead and write that down. It can be on your notes or not on your notes. I'm not going to worry about that.
Professor,
Yes?
would you mind sharing the link to the slides, please?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Go back up and get them. There you go. Oh. Oh, my thing stopped. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and put you in breakout rooms and go ahead and share some of your thoughts around collaborative learning with your colleagues.
How's it going?
Hi. I have my fan on my desk, so it might sound a little bit weird.
I put that I do in my class, I do a thing called Think, Ink, Pair, Share, and it's a strategy where they have to read an article or a text, and then they have to think about what they've learned, and then they pair up with another student, and then they have to present their findings. What'd you guys put?
I use that a lot also because I teach science, so bio right now, and I do have them do a lot of like talk amongst your groups, but it's more like numbered heads together. Everyone on that is gonna get like whiteboards,
Mm-hmm.
and they all have to have pretty much the same answer. So when they show it to each other, if they don't have the same answer, they have to sit down. And it's kind of like a game to them.
Mm. Love it. What about you, Jack? Do you use that in your classroom? Hmm, interesting. Okay, what are your guys' fears about collaboration?
My main one is it's usually I'll catch like the same group, like same kids in the groups, kind of carrying the whole conversation when I don't want that to happen. I'm like, the whole point of you guys collaborating is so you can bounce off ideas, not just one person talks.
Yeah, that happens, I think, in every classroom in the world. I just
Yeah.
tell my students when they do that, I just say, you're not going to get any points for this project because you're not doing any work. And they're like, Miss, it's not fair. And I'm like, you're not doing any work. You don't get any points. Oh, yeah, they hate doing that. I had my kids present in the front of class, and then the kids that I knew didn't do any work, I specifically asked them questions um, to put them on the spot, and then they had to like actually think because everyone was in the whole class was staring at them. I'm like, it's only mean because you guys didn't do your work.
See, I've had that before in my class where me as the student, I personally knew questions so that when that person got asked, they would not know it, and I'd be like, mm-hmm.
Recording in progress.
Okay. All right. So, does anybody have a good experience with collaborative learning that they want to talk about? Great. Is Troy on here? Troy. I don't see you.
He is. His Wi-Fi is just really bad right now.
Okay, just tell him that that's probably he messaged me that he got kicked out of his room. I didn't see it till now, so just telling him I didn't see it till now. Okay. Let's see. We'll start with Jose.
Yeah, so I could just talk about my thoughts on it. So,
Okay.
I think it's important to incorporate collaborative of learning in our classrooms, as allowing students to work with one another, as learning should not always be one-sided, just teacher and student. When students can collaborate, it fosters teamwork and open-mindedness, learning from different perspectives. We all come from different backgrounds, so having that richness of having students work in groups really enhances that. I use it a lot in my English classroom. I tend to do it a lot with my warm-up questions. I have students, collaborate, do discussions and stuff, or I also do group projects, try finding creative ways to incorporate that. And, I notice that the students learn best when they're able to do that and they engage more with the material, having more freedom to actually do it. And that's kind of my thought on it.
Awesome. That's great. I love it. All right. Jacqueline and then Kobe. Oh, you're on mute, Jacqueline. Sorry.
Sorry, now can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
So sorry about that. Yeah, I was saying that I agree with Jose. I use some of the quick parents share exercises in the warm-ups, but I recently did a Socratic seminar, I believe 2 weeks ago before they took their DWA of this week, and it was pretty much effective because I got to hear a lot of, okay, on one side, some students agree with the topic of it, while the other side kind of somewhat agrees or does not or like disagrees. But it's really nice to hear students, these are seventh graders, by the way. It was really nice to hear
Oh,
all this information that not only that they read different articles that tie in back to the essential question, but also they kind of put in like current news or reward situations that backed up their claim. So it was really nice to see that progressing.
and did you have a lot of structures in place so that they wouldn't talk over each other and things like
Oh
that?
yes, oh yes, there were certain guidelines and rules, like
Yeah.
be an active listener, show some respect, and again, this is a civilized discussion. This isn't like a debate. And
Mhm.
I always tell them, wait until high school. That's when you can actually debate and argue if you're right or wrong. But for now,
Yeah.
it's just listening, and the point is to try to look back at the text that you read and highlighted, and then interpret that and support it with your claim. So I was looking for that whenever I was grading them.
That's wonderful. I think Socratic seminars are one of the most amazing things to do as a teacher, but they require a lot of structure. So, and there's lots of great videos out there that can show you how to use them and things like that. So awesome. All right, Kobe and then Brazita.
So back to the weight room.
Uh-huh.
I have them finally actually using barbells to like go through like deadlifts and things like that you would eventually hopefully use in a weight room or a gym. Well, I actually got to see my students, even if they were working on different stations, I emphasized like, hey, if you don't properly do these right, you can really get hurt. So let's practice correct form. And I would have to step away, go work with other stations, come back to the station. So when I would step away, I would actually see other students come from their station, go to the deadlift station, and actually help them go through the process of how to properly do the deadlift. So I think I've been able to embed that communication within the classroom to where it just positively kind of feeds off each other. There's days where
Mhm.
I'm like, okay, the communication is good, but we need to bring it down a little bit. Other than that, it's been really good.
That they're helping each other out and kind of working together. That's amazing. That's awesome. All right, Brazita.
Yeah, so I'm in an English context, and then I do 7 and 8 ELA. And for me, we do a lot of collaborative work when usually on Mondays or Fridays. Typically, when I give them like a workload during the week and I want them to review something, I have them work in groups to identify or whatever it is that the task was. And then at the end, they present as a group. So they're learning from each other instead of me just going and repeating everything I said. And each group gets to present. So they're working on their speaking skills, but also they each have a task to do, right? So they're all responsible for something. So that really helps us out in the classroom.
That's wonderful. I love it. All right, so how many of you guys are like, yeah, my kids just one person does the work, or I just don't even try because it's a problem, or it's just a struggle. Who would like to share maybe a struggle that they have with collaborative learning? All right, Jose, and then Jordan, and then Chris.
Yeah, I could just share a little bit about it. So I was telling my group, so my fears about using this in the classroom would be like the case where students may not be comfortable around each other, or things turning very negative, fighting over opinions. I've had a case in the past where we were doing a debate, and I had partnered up students, kind of knowing like just surrounding students with students that they might talk to. But I guess there was two girls that weren't friends anymore, and I didn't know that, and I put them together and they were like arguing about other things outside of the classroom. And so I guess that those are my only fears, like when like we don't know so much about these students, especially outside of their classroom norms. And so like sometimes it could be difficult to be placing students with who and who, because stuff like this could happen where it becomes very negative and they start like arguing, or just sharing different opinions could be a little tough.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's kind of an interesting thing. We'll talk about making groups, and I think maybe some way that your students can communicate with you to say, somehow, I don't know what, but we'll talk about it of like, this is not, I can't work with that person, because I think that there's some truth to a lot of that. So, especially high school kids, junior high kids, that they like, they can't settle their differences very well. All right, Jordan, and then Chris, and then Kona. Kana. Oh, Kona. Sorry.
We use a
Okay.
lot of collaborative structures in my class and in my lesson plans. Like they're always doing think, pair, shares. A lot of the projects are group work, so they work in small groups. I'm a huge fan of jigsaws because I feel like it keeps people accountable. But I will say that I have noticed issues with like, yeah, interdynamic issues where if I put a group of kids that are like, none of them do the work, then it's a
Mhm.
huge problem. Then you have like just no one's doing anything. And then I have groups that I was like worried about their interdynamics. They balanced it out. They figured out their power structure in the group. And then yeah, you have groups that just won't do anything. So, and I've also seen it being used as like, oh, I can step back as the teacher. And I'm like, unless you've set up like the gradual release of responsibilities with them, you're on it with them more so than like just direct instruction. It feels like I'm running around the room a lot more during collaborative structures than like
Mhm.
direct instruction.
I think absolutely, as a teacher, that is not an opportunity for us to like sit at our desks and go, okay, they're working. It's like we have to be an ear listening in on those conversations and making sure that they're on track, and being there to answer questions. Hopefully, we'll have time to even talk about some structures for that. So, Chris, and then Kana.
Yeah, so kind of what I have experienced is like we do a lot of collaborative learning in the sense of like we do a lot of group and whole class discussions, which I think is really effective in like getting a lot of different ideas and opinions out there. The thing that I have just experienced more struggle with is like project-based learning, especially when it comes to like group work. There's already like a really huge issue in the classes that I'm in with individual students turning in their own work. And I've kind of had that similar experience with like with certain students and in certain periods, like no matter how the groups are formed and like if it's various students that aren't really completing their individual work, it's kind of that same experience where the group work just is not getting done. And then there's also like the flip side where it's like putting some of those students with the higher achieving students that are very much on top of everything. Oftentimes like those students will sometimes take it as an opportunity to sit back, let the other person like do all of the work. And so then that's kind of like the struggle that I'm dealing with, where it's like there are select students that just aren't doing it, or they're not really gaining anything from it because they're not like interacting as much as they should be. So I guess like that's kind of one of the reasons why I refrain from using it as much as I would like to. It also is seventh graders, so like I feel like collaboration in this manner is still new to them. So maybe it's just one of those things that it takes time for them to learn that like accountability.
Yeah, that you said a lot there that I think is important. And I don't know if I can respond to all of it. I will say that working in a group should be a privilege. So if we're working in a group, we each have our own paper, we're collaborating and learning from each other. We're not like, I think we do some stuff as teachers, like we just say, oh, as a group, you're only going to have one paper turned in. Like that happens sometimes. And it's like, no, they need to each be writing on their own and doing their own thing. And or if they have one paper, then they each have a different color pen that they're working on and they're writing and contributing to that. But that's another reason why I think it needs to be a privilege to be able to be in a group. And I think that's another reason why teachers are walking around, because if somebody is not participating, then you can just say to them, you can just say, all right, Joe, I've walked through twice. You're not participating, so you're gonna come over here and you can do this work on your own, period, kind of thing. Because if we're on top of it, they'll figure it out. Hold on a second. My dogs just got groomed and I need to see them. I'll show you guys. It's just my new puppy. Say hi. He's like 2 months old. His name is Mordecai and he's a golden doodle. And then my other one is come here, Jasper. Come here. The kids want to see you. The students want to see you. I'm getting Jasper so that they can see Jasper. So adorable. Sorry. Total like this is Jasper. say hi, Jasper. So he's a Aussie doodle. Okay. Bye-bye. Aren't they cute? We're empty nesters, so we have to have our dog family. We have 4 dogs. So anyway, sorry. So Chris, I think that is kind of a solution with that. Like we're up and around, we're giving singular things. We're how we group them, and we're going to talk about that later, but how we group them. A lot of times we cannot put like really high students with really low students. We just can't do that. So we're going to put our lower students with our kind of medium, even medium to lower students so that they can kind of work at the same pace. And we might, I mean, this is kind of hard, but we might not have the same we have the same learning expectations, but maybe not the depth perhaps of expectations. So, and then we put our high students with our kind of medium higher students because we want everybody to be kind of challenged. Unless and we can have like kind of alike groupings, like all of our high students together, all of our medium students together. We have to be careful when we do this because there could be a stigma with the kids. And so we'll talk about that as well. But grouping is really important and it's not exactly easy. So we'll talk about that. But definitely one thing that I think I would share with all of you is like, don't ever never do, but if they're doing one thing together, they each have a different colored pen and we're looking at and we're seeing that they're all writing. Otherwise, they each have their own papers and they're contributing that way. So either way, we're seeing if everybody's working. So, all right. Thank you for sharing. Tyler, or no, it's Kana and then Tyler.
Yeah, so one of the fears or concerns that I have sometimes is like when certain kids, they monopolize the conversation or they monopolize all the work and they're like, well, I'm the smart one, so I'm gonna do it. And then there's people who just don't want to participate because they're like, well, I can just, ride on the backs of the other people. And so, that's one risk I feel like I take when I'm doing collaborative activities with the students. And then also like it's hard to do any collaborative learning, especially if you haven't created a foundation for it and some rules.
Yeah.
I learned that early on for sure. And I'm currently just trying to continue to tweak it and see like, okay, maybe I need to have roles now. I need to have rules. Everybody can work together, but they each have to turn in their own work. And so yeah, that's just one of the risks that I feel like I take
Yeah.
when I begin doing stuff like that.
So are you in your own classroom now, or are you still student teaching?
I'm still student teaching, but we're kind of doing
Okay.
this like I teach a lot solo, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, what I'll say about student teaching is like you inherit, like, especially if you're in final student teaching, you inherit whatever structures that your master teacher has put at the beginning of the school year. So, and that's what student teaching is all about, learning anyway, right? So it's like we're learning what works, what doesn't. But what I will say, and I've said it to you guys before, like talking in your classroom and everything that you do has to be a culture from in your classroom. So you have to have like this vision of what your classroom is going to be like, and it has to be the culture that you're going to set from day one. So I don't know if I told you guys this, but one of the things that how I set up my classroom at the beginning, if I keep talking, we're never going to get through this class, but that's okay. That's is we were Bullard Knights. I was at Bullard my last 8 years that I taught in the classroom. And so at the beginning of the school year, I had every student make a shield, and I had all of these different things, but it basically was to represent them. And they had color symbols and all kinds of stuff. And then it was cool because they hung up in my classroom, all around my classroom all year long. But they also, like, I took the learning time to have them present those shields to the class. So, and that's one of the hardest things that students have to do is like presenting, but like I want my class kids to be presenters. So when I do that, I say, okay, you can call a friend to be up there with you. So they can bring a friend up but they're going to present in front of the class, and they're going to do it in a voice level that I can hear them. And that's like in the very first week of my class. So from day one, I'm doing stuff like that. Okay. So, and if I'm doing collaborative work, I'm talking about, okay, everybody has to participate. I'm going to have, so I'm very clear in my mind how that's going to look, and I'm giving those directives right away. And like if I have a student who's not participating, then I am saying, okay, Joe, you have like not earned the ability to participate today or in collaborative learning for this activity, so you can sit over here and do it yourself. So they learn really quickly, but we have to start from day one. It's very hard in another teacher's classroom to set those things up. So just don't be discouraged by, I mean, what you're doing right now is learning, so that when you have your own classroom, you're starting day one knowing what you want for them to do, and you're practicing it from day one. This is how we do it. You're maybe only doing a short little thing and then complimenting the kids that are doing right and giving them feedback all of the time and saying, wow, I really like how this group worked together because I saw so and so do this and da da da, and giving lots of praise for the good things and kind of disciplining them. I'm a huge person of like, if we give lots of praise for the things that kids are doing well, then we don't have to spend a lot of time disciplining, because I'm giving the attention to the kids that are behaving. And discipline a lot of times is all about attention getting, right? So if I'm giving all my attention to the positive, 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 then the kids that are not participating, they're not getting the attention that they want. And so they'll start participating. I mean, that's my theory, and I think it works pretty well. There's always outlier kids, so I'm not going to say that it works every time, but anyway. All right, Tyler, and then we need to move on.
So the classroom I've been student teaching in, it's set up like entirely collaborative based. They're in their pairs and they're like every day, unless like on the rare case when we're like, okay, you're doing this solo, they're always working with their partner. but a big problem is with that, it like seems to always end up being that one of the two students is the one doing all the work and the other student is just the one copying.
Mm-hmm.
And so unless I'm like always super like basically be like, hey, like, oh, you don't do that. Like, okay, you need to be writing your own paper. Well, it's like just a constant movement of me having to do that sometimes. And it's not an everyday occurrence,
Yeah.
but it's anytime they think they can get away with it, they'll do it.
Yeah.
And so it's just a constant cycle of having to keep like reminding them that they both are having their own work they need to have and that they're
Mhm.
supposed to be working together to get to the end, not one doing all of it and then showing it to the
Yeah.
other.
Yeah, well, and that's the other thing that I hate about group work too is like I'll say we're gonna do this for group work, and one person says, okay, you do 1 through 4, I'll do 5 through 10, you do so they're just splitting up the work, and that's not what group work's about either, right? So so there's simple things you can do, like when I would walk around with kids, like especially partner work. If I saw that they were doing any kind of that, I would just put a stamp on their paper. And that reminded me, hey, when I grade it, they're not getting full credit. Right. And they know when I put a stamp on their paper that they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Right. Or vice versa. If you want to be the positive person, this person gets a stamp because they're doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing and the other person doesn't. So if their paper doesn't have a stamp, that's probably a better way to do it than because kids like stamps. It's crazy. But so so give them as you walk around, thank you for working together and stamp both of their papers. So you don't have to keep going back and back and back. It's like one time you're like doing it. So those are just like little strategies, but those are the ones we start at the very beginning of class, and we do a lot of, hey, I love how you're working together. Stamp, stamp, good job, and then they see it when they get the paper back and they see it when they get the grade. And if I didn't get a stamp, it's an automatically so many points off because they weren't participating the way that they were supposed to. So or pulling them out and saying, hey, you can't sit here anymore because you're not working with your partner, and your partner is suffering too because he doesn't have somebody to work with anymore. So thanks very much, kind of thing. So you have to kind of do a lot of that. So, all right, we are going to move on. But no, we're not doing that. Okay, here we go. So here's the definition of collaboration: working with one another and with another person or group in order to achieve to do something. So like we're coming together to achieve something together. And it really is a life skill that we're trying to teach people, because I can't tell you how many times at work, when I was especially in like teacher development and different things, that I'm working with 3 other people trying to get something accomplished, right? And if I'm stuck with the whole thing, that's going to suck. So we have to teach them that this is not just something we do here, it's something we do all of the time. All right. This is what Lent said, been able to read the chapter. Think of collaboration as the socialization of intelligence. So bringing people together as a social way to learn things. We were going to do a breakout room for that, but we're not going to do that. So these are some of the ways that students benefit from collaborative learning. Students learn how to use the language of the discipline. Students develop the ability to listen carefully. And remember, some of our standards are speaking and listening skills. Our literacy standards are reading, writing, speaking, and listening. So that we're teaching the standards when we're doing speaking and listening. Students are able to hold on to their thinking. Whenever you share something or talk about something, you're able to hold on to that learning more than if you just like do it yourself. So that's why teachers are so smart, because we go, I'm just being funny, but we are smart because like a perfect example is I was really good at grammar growing up and everything, but I was not good at teaching it. I couldn't like verbalize how to do it. Like I didn't have all of the terms. I just knew because I had done it for so long. So I had to learn because I was teaching it, I had to learn all the right words to use and all of the stuff and everything. And so I became so much better at grammar just by teaching it, right? So whenever you speak about something, then it becomes better. You learn it more. Students feel more comfortable questioning the status quo, and students construct meaning by participating in activities of the discipline and are able to articulate their understanding. So take a look at this chart. This is Kagan. Kagan is a group that is known for teaching collaborative learning strategies. If you ever have an opportunity to go to a Kagan seminar, I highly recommend it. But this is some of this chart shows some of the things that they feel is important about collaborative learning. And then when you see something that stands out in your mind, go ahead and write it in the chat. So go ahead and look at the chart and write it in the chat. Big decline in behavior incidents. Yes, a decline in behaviors. 2 people said that. Students prefer interactive learning. Behavior incidents drop. Collaborative methods are when collaborative methods are introduced. 98% success rate for introduction of K strategies. I noticed the difference in roles. The 12-to-1 preference using Kagan strategies. Declining negative behavior. Kids prefer it. They prefer it. Kagan allows students to engage with their peers and the material. 98% positive impact. Students are tired that teachers are still using traditional learning methods. Discipline declines. So you're seeing there's definitely a pattern in there. They're more engaged. The discipline goes down. The impact is 98%. The referrals are down. I liked the 80.89% students find that studies find that students who achieve in the 50th percentile with traditional methods achieve in the 81st percentile with the Kagan structures. So when you think of Kagan, think of collaborative learning, because that's all their structures are. There are a whole bunch of different structures to do collaborative learning. We'll talk about a few of their structures today. But it's worth, there's books out there for Kagan strategies that you could do, and there's tons of workshops. I know that they're in Fresno all the time if you have an opportunity to go. It would be worth paying for if your school won't pay for it. So, all right. So we're going to watch this video, and I want you to think about what are 3 most important points. Be prepared to share. So I don't know if that's on your notes or not, but go ahead and put those 3 most important points on your notes. Here we go.
We're gonna end the whole class is one group. And we wanna see how well you work together. You get in line by the day we're born without talking.
Because work to our students, they have a contribute.
We're gonna
They know how to use their resources in other people, and they know how to build ideas together.
Now we're gonna say the day you were born.
7, 9,
9, 10,
11.
Woohoo! We got it!
We are an all honors curriculum here, which means we're providing high-level instruction from grades 7 to 12. Given that, we have entirely heterogeneous classes where you've got kids of all different previous levels of achievement.
At University Park, you're going to see group work from grades 7 all the way to grades 12. We start in 7th grade with roles and responsibilities.
You want to make sure you understand what are the responsibilities of each of the roles that you've been given.
I don't think group work comes naturally. I think it's something that they have to learn.
1 + 8.
Today we were learning about integers, positive and negative numbers. Now it's time to take the basic skills and transfer it into real world solving problems.
The person who's the questionnaire, you will come up and get the problem because you have to read the problem to your group partners.
For this particular activity, we give roles. There would be a questioner, a summarizer, and a clarifier.
The clarifier will set up the problem, make sure each group member agrees with the plan.
One side of the paper that I gave them would be prompts, so that it helps them take away that nervousness because it says, oh, you have to say something.
If you're not sure how to start the conversation, if you want to say something, use those sheets.
Get a clarifier. Oh, this paper's paper.
Teachers want us to learn with each other so we can all know what different ways you can solve a problem and not just the teacher's way. I personally really love that because I like to experience how other people solve the problem, so see if I can have a strategy for that too.
Is it done by the end of the year? By no means. No. I mean, it's a struggle day in and day out for sure. But they definitely get better at it.
Yeah.
We're not just pushing desks together and thinking that's group work now, but really giving challenging assignments that require multiple voices, that require people to have a role in building knowledge together.
And so we build it that way. We'll kind of pull away some of the scaffolds as the kids get older, and then you can really see them working together in a collaborative way.
So it's 7.5 by 7.5. We're making a polynomial cube. He's working on the bigger box so we can put things in, and I'm just working on the smaller pieces for now.
We're starting unit on polynomials.
It'll be similar to what you did here.
When you're dealing with polynomials, you're dealing with dimensionality, so they're all building 8 shapes with an outer box, hopefully to tie together the symbolic and the spatial.
Which one do you want to do? The 7.5.
By the 7.5 cube?
Yeah.
All right, then I'll do one of the 12.5s by 7.5.
Okay.
A good group work problem, it's got to be so big that you need your partner to help decide on the organization, to try this while you're trying something related to it.
Starting this project, I was really confused because this class is fairly difficult. But I find that when you go to other classmates, it helps tremendously.
And then they can be talking to the other groups around them and seeing maybe a different way to tweak their process.
So what he did was he came up here and drew each box that this group had. Although we're in our own individual groups, it's very helpful to go into another group and ask questions. When you finally get to the answer, it sticks with you longer than the teacher just telling you the answer. Oh, I see.
The world, more and more, relies on people being able to work together, to collaboratively solve problems.
Anna could do counting how much money we have, and then y'all can do how much everything is in total.
You know, I have kids come to me every single day. I had 4 7th graders come to me the other day. They want to do a bake sale to raise money for Leukemia and Lymphoma Society.
So all the money we make in the bake sale is going to go towards this charity.
So you've got some people on board already to help out, and you're going to stay after today?
Yeah, but they just need to know when they have to have it by. So
They see the value in teamwork. Well, you can go put Friday on that announcement,
all right.
and we'll go on Friday.
Yay!
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I'm gonna pause that there because this is important. University Park Campus School from 2010 to 2015, students improved 52% between 8th and 10th grade on the MCAS, which is probably their state testing for science and technology. Rated silver in the U.S. News and World Report Best High Schools of 2015. Since 2012, 100% of the graduates were accepted into college. 85% enrolled, and currently 80% are on roll to graduate within the next 6 years. So every class in the school does collaborative work. So, pretty impressive. So anyway, let me. All right, so all right, so I am going to put you in two groups and talk about what are the three most important points that you got out of that. So I'll give you another 4 minutes in your group to do that.
Hey guys, what'd you guys get?
I like that they're taught how to collaborate. Pretty much, they're not like, you know how teachers sometimes assume that they know how to collaborate. It kind of showed in the video that they need to have like a structure so that so they know what the expectations and their responsibilities are supposed to be, and then that way they're kind of more independent. I also like them. I like the ending part where they kind of came in and were bringing in like a real world application for it with the whole fundraiser. So they're the ones that did the initiative. So it wasn't a teacher telling them like, "Oh, we should do this."
I liked how they talked about that the goals need to be so big that they need a partner.
Oh, I like them too.
Yeah. So it's like sometimes I want to make it easy for my students, but I need to make it a little bit harder so that they feel the need to talk to each other.
You will come.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like where they need to work together. I also like that when you're in a collaboration, that you have to self-evaluate your own findings because, you know, you're hearing other people talk and you're like, oh, maybe that's not right, what I thought, you know? Um, and then kind of what you said, Daisy, too, like using prompts. Like I think prompts are a huge one. Like giving them like a little bit of a head start so it just they don't feel like they can't do it, you know?
Yeah, because I did a lab yesterday and I had the same question, like, "Oh, what do we do?" And I was like, "Instructions are on your paper," and they're like, "Oh, they are." I'm like, "Just you need to read." So, because they're supposed to work in a group to do the lab, and then people would ask, and then I'd hear other groups say like, "It's in the instructions," so
Mm-hmm.
they could get going because they wanted to finish it. So I'm like, and the way that I made it so that they held each other accountable was that I left a section for each student to write their name and what they did. And so that way I knew if they did something or they didn't do something.
Yeah, love that. Um,
She said she wanted us to write this on the note-taking page, right?
yeah, I just put it under key idea too.
Okay.
Just write. I don't even know if she looks at them, so I would just write like anything we talked about, just write it all.
important
Recording
things
in
that you
progress.
Lawrence.
Yeah, so things they talked about was that the collaboration needs to be scaffolded. So one of the things that struck me about the video was that the math teacher lady was talking about like even after a year that they wouldn't be fully ready to be like independent, like to independently do the group work on their own. They still need like tons of practice with like they like being scaffolded for their group work. They still need like their teachers still need to give them like what roles they need to give and that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was seventh grade that she was doing. So and you saw the progression between seventh grade to 11th grade, the last video of how they definitely had some autonomy after that. So awesome. All right, Elena.
Building off of what Lawrence just said, which I wasn't going to say this, but I feel like after him saying this, when he was talking about scaffolding, I think that using prompts for my kids and giving them a head start and giving them kind of like a little context and structure, I feel like is helping them kind of get into that mental framework of where I want them to go.
That's really good. And sentence frames for how they're supposed to speak to each other, especially, are you junior high, Elena?
No, I teach high school, and honestly, most of them are like deemed like illiterate, so they need help.
Yeah, and you know what? That was what I was going to say. Like even because I was a high school teacher, my high school teachers totally can use sentence frames and stuff like that. We can pull that scaffold away, but scaffolds are for help, and until they don't need them anymore, we should have them out there. Make sure you're using your sentence frames, walking around. Hey, I need to hear you guys using your sentence frames. I want you to learn how to speak properly with each other in a group. So awesome. Okay, thank you. Shano and then Julia.
I talked about how group work does not come naturally and it must be learned and kind of ingrained daily and like, over time. Because, kids are very antisocial nowadays, especially coming back from COVID, and they
Yes.
don't have the necessary social skills. And so just like slowly chipping away at those layers and getting them used to the routine of talking is something that I took from the video.
Yes, definitely. And starting smaller, maybe it's just pairs and then we bring in a third and we have sentence frames and things like that. So yes, very good. Thank you. Julia.
Yeah, everyone kind of already said what I was gonna say, but just noticing that, it's kind of really important that they have that exposure, even if they haven't had it before, and that it is something that takes time. So I think, like at least for me going to teaching, I sometimes I have that sense of like having that expectation that they should know it, without thinking that maybe they don't. So I try to kind of take a step back sometimes and think, okay, maybe they don't, and maybe that's why they're really struggling. With collaborating and like answering questions and yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we do have expectations. It's funny, like, wow, I can't believe they can't do this. It's like
Yeah.
you would think that they can, but it's hard to
Mhm.
make sure that they do. So awesome. Thank you, Julia. Jose and then Bianca.
Yeah, so I kind of talked about how the distribution of group roles and then the prompts help discussions flow a little better, as well as help students understand the process of learning from one another, becoming problem solvers, knowing more than just a teacher solution. I think this was, I guess it really resonated with myself, because I see that a lot of the times in classes, and especially in high school, we expect these students to kind of already know a lot of these things and how to, do certain activities. And I typically notice that a lot of the students lack a lot of critical thinking. Like they just don't try hard enough to really engage within or, just become problem solvers. And I think they expect, us as educators to just give them the answers and only know our solution. So I think just holding higher expectations for those students would be very much necessary. I think she left, huh?
I'm still listening, Jose. Keep
Sorry,
going.
sorry, you guys. My computer was able. I was having a hard time hearing Jose.
Yeah, I can repeat it.
Are you done, Jose?
Yeah, but I can repeat it if you didn't listen. Um,
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just talked about how distribution of group roles and then the prompts help the discussions flow a little better, as well as help students understand the process of learning from one another, becoming good problem solvers, knowing more than just a teacher's solution. And I kind of talked about how it resonated with myself, especially knowing that right now in our high school, students lack those critical thinking skills, and they don't necessarily like expanding their knowledge or just that overall thinking outside the box. And so whenever it comes to like school, I know that a lot of these students expect the teachers to just give out the answers, or they only want to know their solutions. And so I think just holding higher expectations for our students, and holding them more accountable to doing their own problem seeking. And so I just thought that was really important.
I think higher standards is huge. Like we have to believe that they can do it. Like we have to have that growth mindset that these kids can do this. We just need to teach it. So, yes, and put the structures in place to help them do it. All right, Bianca?
I was just gonna say that the part that really stuck out to me and that I think I could relate to the most is to give them challenging assignments when they're doing group work, because I've had my students do group work and I feel like they finish it quickly, and so I'm just like, maybe a challenging assignment will actually make them collaborate even more and not so much copy each other.
I think you're absolutely right. I wrote that down actually too to talk to you guys about. Like it has to be challenging so that they are like, oh, just not like answer the questions, level one questions for together, because then that's when they're copying. So when they actually have to think and be thinking partners with each other and rely on each other a little bit more, then they're gonna want to do some group work because they're like, I can't do this on my own, but maybe I can get some help from my partner, and then maybe there's a way that I can help, or we can think together and come up with the solution together. So I really I wrote that down too. I also wrote down scaffolding um, uh, to as one of the important things. So awesome, thank you. All right, Samuel, and was there anybody else that had their hand raised before I fell off the wagon over here? Yeah. Okay, Samuel.
Something I saw from the students in the video and in my class too is just how much more excitement students have to talk to each other about their work than they do listening to the teacher every day over and over again. So, there's just like a natural social energy that they tap into when they're working together.
I love that. So, and I think another thing is just having these high expectations for kids, like really believing they can do it, and that it's a learning process, and we're going to learn this together. And it might not always be perfect, and I might have to stop them and say, hey, you guys, we're doing group work right now. These are the norms, or these are the rules that we have for group work. I need you guys to stick with that, and make sure that everybody's on the page, not allowing it to go a long way without them like chatting about what they're going to have for lunch. So if there's some groups in the class that are not doing that, then we're going to bring the whole class back. Let's talk about the norms for group work. How do we do new group work? Always having the expectations up for them, and knowing that we're going to have to teach it over and over and over again until they get it. So because somebody said, and I can't remember who it was, like we just sometimes expect them to know things that they don't know, and it's crazy, and you're just like, really, I can't believe you don't know that. So or that you don't behave that way, or whatever it is, but it really helps. So awesome. All right, let's move on. Oh, not that. Move. Okay, so on this page, 12 ways to get students speaking and listening, there is an article that I would like you to read, and then we are going to talk about it. So go ahead and take some time to read it, and then we'll talk it. Okay, so these are all fairly simple things, but I think that just looking at them and thinking about it. So use think, pair, share a lot and cold calling. So when you ask a question, to students, that's a great way to start collaboratively. Like you ask a question to students and you say, okay, think about it. All right, share your answer with your partner, and then you cold call a group. So if I was like say Kana and Jose were like sharing together, and like each of you had a partner, and I'm like, okay, all right, talk to your partner. Okay, Jose, answer the question. Okay, or so that's kind of that cold calling when they know that they might have to answer. Or the other thing that I used to like to do is say, Jose, what did your partner say? So so they're listening to their partner. Because because the thing is with kids, they're so funny. Because if Jose just doesn't know what his partner said, and he makes something up, then his partner's going to go, "That's not what I said." So so they tell on each other, and it's great. So you don't have to worry about that. So think, pair, share, and cold calling. Okay, so just think of that as instead of asking any group discussion, I'm telling you guys, any group discussion where you're asking students questions, say, okay, I'm going to ask a question. So first of all, as teachers, and this is something we don't do very often, but you should plan your questions beforehand so that you're planning questions for the most important things and not questions for everything. And then you do like, okay, I want you to think about this. All right, share that with your partner. And hopefully in your classroom, you have like A/B partners. They should know who their partners are when you do think pair shares. Um, and then cold call on them. So that's a great way to do it. Or asking them what their partner said. Encourage students to restate or paraphrase, not repeat what their peer said. So like if I call on somebody and they answer the question and then I call on somebody else, can you tell me, in your own words what so and so just said? And even ask them to elaborate on it. Or, can you tell me what they said and elaborate on it? Can you tell me a little bit more? So like they have to repeat what somebody said. That's a really good technique with Socratic seminar. All right, listen to what they said, tell me what they said, and then add to it. Okay. Or, give me a different idea to it. The next one, move from paraphrasing to inference. So you can ask your students for evidence. Give me evidence from that and tell me how that works. So that takes practice, but if they can start saying, well, what he meant is this, and not just what he or she said. Treat students as sleuths out to solve a mystery. That's fun, especially they get excited if they come up with the answer. And ask why as much as possible. So when students answer a question, like you ask a question and they answer it, you can say, and where did you get that answer? Or why do you think that? So like, so that they have to really come up with why they thought that. Well, and we have to have questions. That's another thing about planning our questions. We have to have questions that can have a why to them. They're not just like, level one. When I talk about DOK, they're not just level one answers, it came right out of the book. They have to think about it and go like, so if I was teaching literature, I would say something like, so why do you think that character was so interested in pursuing that this dream that he has? Well, he said, blank, 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 and then he would tell other people blank, 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 blank. So that's why I think he really wants to answer have this dream. So so we're asking, why did you come up with that answer? But we have to ask the right questions, and that's the teacher's job, like asking the right questions. And then asking students to respond with complete sentences. The biggest thing about that, you guys, is one, if you start day one, they'll learn it really quickly. If you stop them and say, can you say that in a complete sentence? I need that in a complete sentence. And that transfers into their writing, which is huge. Because they learn to speak in complete sentences and then they'll write in complete sentences. So it really helps. And this is one that always had to work on because, a lot of times our students will say stuff, but they don't say it loud enough. So I would just repeat what that person said. And so instead of me repeating what that person says, I need to say, all right, hi, Abby, could you say that just a little bit louder so everyone can hear? And then I can say something like, Jose, can you just repeat what Abby's just said instead of me repeating it? So if I'm asking somebody else to repeat it, but I had a tendency to always repeat what student says. And if you think about it, you might do the same thing because they don't speak loud enough. And so we're doing it for them. Use think alouds to model how you think. Okay. So if I had to approach this problem, the first thing I might do is, so I'm using a think aloud, walking through how I might do this. So if I was working on group work, the first thing I might do is do pair shares a lot. And then the next thing I might do is da da da. So I'm thinking through something and then they see what it looks like to think through something. So modeling it. Invite students to ask questions as often as possible. There's a thing that I wasn't able to teach you last week, and I'm going to do it next week. It's called the question formation technique. And it's so amazing, like getting students to ask questions. So we'll do that next week, but we want them to ask questions because if they're asking questions, they're building their curiosity. Okay. And when lecturing or presenting new material, provided guided notes. So instead of just having them write notes, have them provide guided notes because then they're listening for certain things that you're asking them about. Whenever a difficult to pronounce word appears, engage the entire class in choral pronunciation of the word. So in other words, okay, class, say this word. Because a lot of times, and you guys, it doesn't matter if they're junior high or high school, kids will do these things. Like sometimes I heard from high school teachers a lot, like our kids are too old for choral this. No, they're not. If you guys do it in like we do it in church all the time, like choral responses and different things like that, or let's read this together, or whatever. So kids can do it. It's great. So those are just some ways to get students to work together and to talk and to think. And a lot of that is you guys having the best questions available and then asking why a lot. Where did you get that? What made you think that? So that they can think aloud their process for them. And the other thing, it's not on there, but there's a technique, I might have it later in the slideshow, but it's called no opt-out. How many of you guys have ever heard of no opt-out? Okay. First of all, if you don't have a book, Teach Like the Champion 3.0, you should get it because it's amazing. It has so many, I'll put it in the chat in a minute. But it's one of the best books with strategies, and it's Doug Lemov. They mentioned him down here with cold calling and different things. I don't know where they mentioned him, but I saw it. Oh, Doug Lemov, Teach Like a Champion, describes an array of methods to enhance the ratio. He's got the whole book is methods, is like different strategies to get kids to work well in the classroom. They're awesome too. But anyway, his no opt-out is how many times do you ask students a question and I'd say like, hey, Shano, what's the Shano? And then I ask the question. First of all, when we ask a question, this is like really like little but big. So first of all, when we ask a question, I did it wrong. So I shouldn't say Shano because as soon as I say Shano, then everybody's out like, I'm checked out because I don't have to answer the question, right? The only person that's paying attention to me is Shano because I said his name first. So what we need to do is ask the question, have some wait time, and then say, all right, Shano, what is the answer to that question? Okay. And then no opt-out is when Shano says, I don't know. And if I say, and if Shano says, I don't know, then I say, okay, Shano, just a minute, make sure you're listening. Jacqueline, can you help Shano out and answer that question? And so Jacqueline then answers the question. And then I go back to Shano and I say, Shano, so what was it that Jacqueline said? So It's no opt out, which means you're going to learn this, right? I'm not going to let you just sit there and say, I don't know. Or I could say, after Jacqueline answers, I can say, now, Shano, can you add to that? So I'm going back because Shano's listening. There was a teacher at, I worked as a coach at Tioga Middle School. And there was a teacher there, and I loved it, but it was a part of his class. People would say, oh, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't make kids do this. But I'm like, I loved it because it was just a culture in his classroom. If a kid didn't know the answer to a question he asked, they'd say, I don't know. And he'd say, okay, stand up. So they'd stand up. And that was a reminder to the teacher that I need to go back to him because he would forget to go back. But he had a no opt out policy. So if the kid didn't know the answer to the question, he stood up. And what started happening in that classroom is that they wouldn't even say they don't know the answer. They would just stand up because they knew that they were going to have to go to someone else and then it was going to come back to them. But what happens is if you let them off the hook, if I'm constantly like calling on somebody and they'd say, I don't know, and I'm like, okay, so I move on to the next person, then I don't ever have to know. Like there's no need to know, right? So does that make sense to you guys? The no opt-out policy, it's a really good strategy. And right here in this article, so I don't have to put it in the chat, Doug Lemov, I'll put it right here. Teach Like a Champion. Great, great book. All teachers should have, especially all new teachers. It's the cool thing about the book is it has all these strategies and then it has videos and things that you can watch to see it actually happening and how it works. So it's a really great book. All right. I'm putting it in the chat right now. Oh, Lamov, Doug. Oh, there we go. I guess it did it. Okay, there you go. All right, so let's go back. Can you guys see my screen, by the way? Okay, I think when I wasn't there, it went away. So start small, think pair share, then add to it, think write pair share. Kagan structures. Okay, the Kagan structures, that's another book or a opportunity that you should get. There's so many great Kagan structures. These are two of my favorite. So the first one is round robin. This structure is designed to give everyone in a group an equal chance to participate. Start with one participant. Each person gets 1 to 3 minutes going clockwise or counterclockwise to present their point of view. You have to decide. So basically, like if you have groups of 3, you say, okay, everybody is like number off 1 through 3. All right, number 1, you have a minute to share. And they share for a minute. All right, number 2, it's your turn, add on to what number 1 said. All right, number 3, it's your turn, you add on to what everybody else said. Okay, so everybody gets a chance to share. You have a timer, it goes off, they move forward, and it's like, okay, so we're teaching them. These are like teaching strategies to get them to talk in class. And you as a teacher have to go around and say, oh, no, you're not talking. It's your turn, or like, I don't want to hear anybody else but number 3. Number 3 is raise your hand, your turn. So like, they know it's my turn, those kind of things. And then numbered heads together is really great too. Like you put kids, you say, okay, everybody get up. Maybe they're in groups of 3 or groups of 4. Okay, number off. So they number off 1 through 4. And then you ask a question. All right, you guys have 2 minutes to talk about it as a group. So they all get together, they talk about it as a group, and then you decide, okay, group 4, number 1, what's the answer? So you're calling on whatever group. So they know that they might get called on. So they're going to talk to their peers, especially if they don't know the answer. So they're going to numbered heads together is really a cool, like one of the best strategies, actually, I would say one of the best Kagan strategies. Do you guys have any questions about either of those strategies? Okay, cool. All right. Let me see. Just a second. 6:09. Let me see how many slides I have left. Oh, we have time. Cool. All right. So in this article, let me make sure the link's still there. Yes. Okay, good. All right, so in this article, there are there's a whole bunch of strategies. So if you're in, I'm going to put you in I'm going to put you, how many groups I have? Look how many groups I have. Maybe I'll just do 5 groups. Where's my breakout rooms? 6, 8, 9. Okay. I'm going to put you in only 8 groups. So recreate. Okay. All right. So I put you in group 8 groups. So if you're in group 1 or 5, you're going to do strategies 1, 3, and 4 from this article. And then in groups 2 and 6, you're going to do 5, 6, 7, 8. And just read it through them, and you're going to have everybody will explain. Well, we won't have time for everybody to explain a strategy, but at least you'll get an idea of some strategies in your group. So any questions what you're doing in your group? Okay, I'm going to give you, let's see, it's 6:11. I'll give you about 8 minutes. So here we go. There you go.